Hey, welcome to Two Nerds and One Podcast. This is a rambling podcast about dumb shit that we're interested in. My name is Scott.
And I'm Jake.
Today, on this episode, we're going to be doing predictions for 2021.
I feel like I'm always doomsaying for the next year and a half now.
Yeah, well, we shall see. Maybe things will be completely different and off base from what we predict. So I would say the best place to start would be since it's coming up in the next couple of days, let's go into the political world. So there's a very important election coming up in Georgia.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I don't think the Democrats have a chance.
Right, so we've got two candidates, Warnock and then the other dude who I forget his name.
Yeah. It's a special election and a regular election combined into one, right? Because it's their vote. I think something happened where Georgia had to replace both candidates, and so now both candidates are every cycle instead of just every other. Because usually they're staggered.
Right, and it was the poll was so close for the election that they have to do a runoff election.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm just Googling here.
You're looking up the man's name?
I am.
I think just in general, I think that after 2016, I can't not think that the Democrats can't get out of their own way.
Right, so let me just state the facts.
Please, for the court.
Oh, yeah. Of course. It's happening on Tuesday. So it's two Republican incumbents, David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. They are being run against by Jon Ossoff, is the guy that I forgot his name, and Raphael Warnock. And both of those candidates are spending, actually all four of the candidates are spending lots of money. They spent 480 million on this Senate election campaign, which is actually the most expensive campaign in history, I believe.
Great. Most expensive Senate campaign, right?
I think in total, any campaign.
Well, I thought the presidential election was like 2 billion plus or something.
Let's check. So obviously I'll edit this out.
No, leave in the dead silence of us searching things on the internet.
Oh fuck, you're right. Okay, so it's the most expensive Senate campaign. You're right. So the 2020 U.S. election, it was 14 billion in total for both candidates. And
$14 billion.
Yeah.
Imagine what you could do with that money.
I'm just reading the tagline. Okay, it was in total. So the presidential is not listed here, but in total for congressional and presidential is 14 billion. So it's let's say half is for presidents, But still 7 billion is quite a lot to do that with. Yeah.
I can't. It's just a disgusting amount of money.
Yeah. Ever since the Supreme Court case, I can't recall which one, but how they allowed corporations to donate as much as they want. I think that was in 2012 or 2016. Then that's opened the floodgate for just throwing money at whatever candidate you want.
Yeah, free speech is money. If you want free speech, you got to pay for it.
Yeah, that shit costs. So your prediction is that both Democrat candidates are not going to get the seats.
I think because the Democrats always like to hang their hat on we can win, we can win, we can win. Or I guess the main problem or the main focus really is they're always reliant on a linchpin, right? We only need one more. We just need one, you guys. Then one never comes through.
Right. And here the stakes are extremely high.
Extremely high.
They have to win both seats to get the majority in the Senate.
Yeah. So I think I don't have a lot of hope for our political system anymore. So I think it's not going to go well.
I'm going to make a prediction that the Democrats get both seats.
Wow.
It's not based on reality at all. No, it's not based on reality.
You just want to be the foil.
Yeah, I'll be your foil. It's a mix of being a foil and also having high hopes for that result.
I don't know. I think even if let's say they get the majority, what do they want to happen? Joe Biden's already said he's not for Medicare for all.
I'm not sure the policies that are going to happen, but of course there's going to be so many critical votes coming up in the next 6 years, right? Or at least a few years until the next cycle of Senate seats are up for election. Nancy Pelosi is making some very strange statements in public. I think we both know which one I'm thinking of.
I think there potentially could be a lot of people retiring, yeah, but my problem is, okay, let's say they both get in there. So then what? right? It's not like all Democrats can agree on one thing anyway.
I think they vote pretty strongly.
That's the difference, right? That's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Like Republicans have their failures, but they will vote lockstep no matter what.
That's not true though. They have a couple people who's the lady from Maine that sometimes votes with the Democrats.
Susan Collins, she's a
Collins, yeah.
joke.
Uh, but anyway,
She's a joke.
there's a couple people that are outliers. I think Democrats can usually.
I agree. I think that they just aren't going to be able to get out of their own way. I mean, in 2012, the Democrats had a supermajority and couldn't even get health care through the health care that they wanted. So then they hired. Long story short, they had a supermajority and they couldn't get through the legislative stuff that they wanted to. They had all these grand visions and like nothing happened.
They still got the ACA through, right?
Was that during the supermajority?
I have no idea. I would assume.
I don't think it was.
No? Okay.
I don't. Now you're gonna make me look it up.
It was in March 2010.
So they had the supermajority in the first 2 years. So yeah, it was after it was after the supermajority.
Well, the ACA was passed in March 2010. When did the supermajority end?
2009. 2009.
Oh, okay. Okay, that surprises me. I would think they'd need a supermajority to get that passed through.
No, yeah. I think that was the failings, right? Is they could have pushed through, not that they could push through whatever the hell they wanted, but they had a pretty strong case for doing so and didn't.
Right. If you're going to do it, then that would have been the time to do it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if the Republicans had a supermajority in the last 50 years, right? You would think, looks like 1965 was the last. This is all to say, I don't have a lot of hope for the Democratic Party anymore.
I can totally respect that.
I think I've been around people too long to like have no faith in government anymore. And then the government doesn't give me hope or doesn't like recover from their failings. So then I'm sort of left of disliking it all in total.
Yeah, so they don't learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, they don't learn from their mistakes. That's right. So I mean, politically, I think not much is going to change. I think the Republicans are going to keep the majority. And then I think some BLM movement or cops are going to kill another black guy for no reason again. And then Joe Biden is going to try and toe a line that's like, well, he was a bad guy though, but they killed him without any cause. So I don't know. Like, I think that's going to be his line.
So he won't take a stance on it?
I don't think so. He hasn't taken a stance before, right? I don't know. And Vice President police officer isn't going to say anything either.
Is she a police officer?
She was the DA.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay.
Yeah, I think she was a DA in California, if I remember correctly.
Teaching me stuff here.
Oh, I'm sorry. She was the AG, not the DA.
Okay.
She was the AG.
That makes a bit more sense.
I know. I guess she was the DA too.
She both. Okay. Multi-talented.
She was Attorney General of California 2011 to 2017, and then she was the DA of San Fran from 2004 to 2011.
Okay. Learning something today.
Yeah. So she was both a DA and an AG.
She probably won't be too critical of police yet.
No.
It's going to happen that the police are going to kill innocent people again, and then people will be angry. But 2 months later, they'll forget about it, just like every school shooting and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. I think not much is going to change.
Okay. I think that's a pretty fair interpretation, especially day-to-day life is not going to be that different for you or me.
At least for the next year, I don't think life is going to change much from 2020.
What would be a goal that you would like to see the Democrats take on if they got the majority?
Medicare for all would be great. Well, I mean, truly, I would love a one-payer system, but I don't think that'll ever happen in this country.
Okay, got it.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, a national health system would be something else, I think. Because of how much money is in it, there's no way that'll ever happen.
Right. There's a lot of lobbyists and...
Yeah, and this is speaking from someone who just accepted a job at a marketing agency who does work for the medical fields. So, like...
I didn't realize you're changing jobs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got a new job.
Cool. Congrats, man.
It's an old job, but it's new. Hey, thanks. I would like to not have to do what I do. It'd be great. So, like, a lot of the work we work is with ASCs. It's ambulatory service centers. They're like the intermediary between emergency rooms and immediate cares. So they're kind of like higher priority places that aren't a hospital but aren't in immediate care. So it's like if you need like knee surgery, it's like kind of like outpatient surgery places as well, right? So they're in it for the money. I guess is my point. It'd be great to not have to support someone in it for the money. Part of the reason I'm leaving my current job is because they work with clients I don't really agree with, and so it's not that I have a moral qualm, as large of a moral qualm with these businesses. It's more the system itself.
Right. So moving from one disgusting thing to a less disgusting thing.
Yeah, I mean it's marketing. I'm always gonna hate the stuff that I do, but I just hate it less.
Man, I hope your future employer listens to this.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't have a problem if he does listen to it. I mean, they need servicing. I'm happy to help them.
Okay.
I don't love the work. I'm smart enough to do it. It's the skills I have. I wish I didn't have to do it.
Okay, understood. So you mentioned a little bit a good time to transition probably from politics to the economic situation. What do you think is going to happen in 2021?
I think that both the Fed and the bank are going to try and pull out all stops to keep from going into like a depression. And I think we'll get pretty close. I don't think it'll happen. I think we have better systems in place to avoid a serious economic collapse. I think we learned a lot from 2008 and we have fucking magically skirted along. Obviously there's a K recovery, meaning the rich are richer, but the poor are poorer. I think that will obviously persist given what I assume we'll talk about next, which is the Rona. But yeah, I think economically, it's not going to get any better. I think it'll get better for people who have jobs. It's just going to keep getting worse for people who work in the service industry or people who own small businesses or people who, I mean, eventually I assume it's going to start trickle up to the people who rely on that kind of thing. But I don't know. This seems like this country runs on misery long enough that we kind of need it.
We need what?
The misery.
Oh, more misery. Just pile it on.
Yeah. And I say that as someone who is in a place where I can mostly ignore it, right? I just got a new job. My wife is well employed. My kid is fine at home or not, whatever. We have time, meaning we have time in our day that we can, we don't have to leave the house to go to work. I don't work in a blue collar job, and I'm not in HVAC or anything. My wife and I both have flexible schedules. We are in a extremely, extremely privileged place, and there are innumerable people that are not. And I think it's going to start putting the pinch.
Yeah, I think it's really something that we don't hear enough about is the people working in the service industry and how they have to choose between, okay, I possibly have corona symptoms. Do I go to the doctor and then I don't get paid for this week or next week or a month or something? Or do I just hide the symptoms and go to work sick and also indirectly or directly be a part of the problem why it's spreading so fast?
As someone who worked in the service industry is like, you did that thought process before corona. People would go to work, I wouldn't say with the flu, but definitely sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally remember those times too, where I'd rather just hide it and be paid for that day.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that definitely is not the best position to be in.
Yeah.
And then what do you think about this new stimulus that's passed with the $600 checks?
It's a joke.
I think that regardless of how much the money amount is, it's funny how long of a time there was between the first check that was issued and the second. I mean, politicians can just sit on it and wait because they're not risking their families, food stocks and stuff. But for a lot of people, that's way too long between the first and the second, right?
Yeah, it's a little mind-boggling that the first check, which was, I could be wrong, but I think it was in February. I don't know. It was in March or something, right? April?
I think it was.
It was in the spring.
It was around that time. Yeah, in the spring.
We'll say spring. The first check was in the spring, and it was $1,200, which, okay, I guess is fine. But you're right. I mean, it's a long time to wait, and there's no help. I mean, $600 too is like nothing. It's
right.
It's not going to be a lot of money. It's going to be a lot of money for some people, but that money isn't going to go very far. Like $600
Right,
isn't
that's
going to cover your rent. $600 isn't going to cover your food costs for very long. $600 isn't going to cover your sick time. It's not going to cover a damn thing. Like you're not going to get. I don't know, man. Like it's almost worse than nothing. This is like fuck you money, where it's like, please go away and don't talk to me again.
yeah, it's almost like doing something just to have done it rather than trying to do the original plan of, I think 2000 was the idea, and that got shot down in the Senate.
Yeah, it's worse than trying to do something. This is just like well, what's the amount that will get people to shut up long enough that
Yeah.
this isn't a problem anymore?
How much can we get them to say we've done it?
Right, right. Is there a stimulus in Germany?
They go about it a bit differently, so the end consumer doesn't see much. They did do something where they have a very high value added tax, VAT here. It's something like 18%. And so when you buy something, there's an 18% tax on it, depending on what, right? If it's electronics, for example, then that would be 18
Sure.
versus food, which would be less. So they cut the VAT for I think until a few days ago. So they did that from maybe July, August up until December. So it was a little bit of a boost to the economy,
Hmm.
but they are looking out more for people that. Let me rewind. They do look out for the end consumer in that if you have a job and you can't go to work, the place is closed, then you'll automatically get 70% of your pay for the entire time that you don't have the job. So it's pretty good in that regard.
Holy shit.
Yeah. The people that are hit a bit harder is the people that have their own businesses. Like there was a restaurant right
Sure.
down the street from me that opened, I think in June of this year.
My
So
God.
yeah, they were paying a few thousand euros a month to the business owners just so they could cover rent, but they don't have to pay wages if they're not open. But if they are open, then they can only do takeout, and then they're losing so much money paying the wages and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
if you have your own business, I think it's a hard place to be right now in Germany.
Oh yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, in the U.S. too, right? They have the same problem. Only like your employees don't get the stipend if you close.
Yeah, that's true. So it's a little more of a fuck you to the employees.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that they look out for the employees here a little bit more. So yeah, but I agree with your prediction totally that it's going to get close. It might even tip into the recession. But I think the countries it's in their best interest to pull out all the stops to try to prevent that, because if we have a repeat of 2008, it's going to be devastating to the economy, the world economy.
Yeah, I think if we get into a situation where, I don't know, a certain number of people can't pay their mortgage anymore, or a certain number can't pay their student debt, or certain people can't pay off their car loans, that's a big one too, that it could potentially create a little bubble of its own. But I think, again, from 2008, we've sort of learned that it's not, there's less systemic issues. There's less connected tissue between all the pieces, right? No one's holding all the cards anymore, or there's less people holding all the cards. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I think that, yeah, I think that we'll keep working to not slide into hell. But I think if it does, I think it's gonna just spiral out of control.
I think what you mentioned is important, because if the risk is spread out through a bunch of different entities or people, then I think it's actually better, because then if one industry fails, then you're really screwed if it's an important industry like banks, for example. So when the
Sure,
banks started collapsing,
sure.
that started everything really.
I don't think a lot would. This is like going to come to bite me in the ass, but let's say car loans started failing the way that home loans failed. I don't think there's like a Goldman Sachs version of like car loans that, I'm sure there's companies that hold them and sell them and et cetera,
Right.
but I don't think it's like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't think it's nearly as a powerful entity.
It's just normal banks, but the value is much less, right? It's a house versus a car.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things from 2008 too, right? Of like investment banks and like actual banks have to be separate now. You can't have an investment bank and a checking account at the same place.
I see. Yeah, to try to spread the risk of it.
Yeah, which, makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Seems like common sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
The industry that I think is going to get hit really hard, it's already been hit hard already, but is anything to do with travel and
Mm.
airlines.
Hmm.
I still get emails from airlines and travel companies saying, hey, tickets are really cheap, right? But I can't imagine how high the price is going to skyrocket when everything opens up in this year, if everything opens up in summer, let's say. Then yeah, it's going to be really expensive and they're going to try to recoup all their losses, right? So travel is probably going to be really expensive all of a sudden.
Yeah, and no one's going to want to. Well, everyone is still. I mean, after everyone uses their flight vouchers.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people holding on to those.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
I don't know if they expire or not, but because it depends on the air company.
Right.
I guess that could be another sector that fails, right? Is airlines.
Yeah. They'll probably get lots of state support. Like I know in France, the government basically bought them out and said, "We'll give you loans, but you have to do what we say." So Germany rejected that same deal. I don't know about the U.S.
Hmm.
Have you heard of any airlines going bankrupt, just out of curiosity, in the U.S.?
I haven't, but that doesn't mean that they aren't near it. I think Boeing was having a real problem after they fucked up that I can't remember the number.
737 Max.
Was
Yeah.
that 777? Yeah. And so I think they were talking about bankruptcy or were going into bankruptcy or something at the beginning of the Corona, I think, if I remember correctly. So I think,
Mm.
it's a plane company. The airlines, I think, will be, it's just like the car companies. They're going to get money if they have a problem.
Yeah, here's hoping. I'd like to be able to fly home to the U.S. every now and then.
Yeah. I'm sure someone will come and fill the void if they all collapse.
Yeah, hopefully anyway. So you said a keyword as well. You said Corona. I think in the last part of this podcast, it'd be cool to focus on what the year's going to look like for Corona. Do you have any predictions?
So I've said this elsewhere before too, but I honestly think I will not have a shot available to me until first responders get their second round, and not like their second, the one they get a week after, but the one that they're probably going to need in like, I don't know, 8 months. And so we're going to have the same problem all over again, where everyone's going to need a second dose, right? Because there's no evidence. It hasn't been long enough to say how, if the vaccine lasts that long, right? It could last 4 months for all we know.
Would that be enough to counteract a lot of the spreading of the virus? I mean,
Given the state that the U.S. is in, no, I doubt it.
okay. Okay,
I mean,
fair
we could
enough.
save old people, right? Because we're injecting old people and first responders, which is, we should save as many first responders as possible, right? The frontline workers, etc.
What about the old people?
Listen, I'm not saying that they don't. Trying not to mince my words.
It's okay if you can say you want to murder them. It's fine.
I don't want them to die, but I don't. I don't want them to die, but I think I'll give you an example. There's a news story. There's a news story in Massachusetts just like last week about how they gave the oldest woman in Massachusetts an injection. She's 112.
She's got so much ahead of her.
Okay, right? I'm really trying not to be sadistic or wish death upon someone, but does she really need it? I mean, really, 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 does she need it?
Right.
Like, could that one shot go to, I don't know, someone who is currently in leukemia and like needs that kind of thing? I don't know. This is a part of the problem with figuring out how to give a rationed thing to the masses. This would be the same problem if we had food stocks that were low, right? Well, who gets the biscuit, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I guess my head is like, I don't think I would give a biscuit to a 112-year-old lady who can't get out of a chair and has to be constantly covered in blankets. I don't know.
I tend to agree with you there. Of course, it's a fine line besides deciding, okay, at what age does it not make sense? But I think the idea is nice, but maybe how to say it, in practice, that it's not really going to help as much as if you had immunized first responders or medical professionals,
Right. That isn't to say like I wish my grandmother didn't get I assume she has not gotten it yet. I don't wish that my grandmother to not be vaccinated.
I was just saying, right, the ideal situation is that everyone gets immunized and is safe, but I don't think the supplies are there to be able to do it.
That is the problem, right? That's exactly what I was going to say. Is it would be a totally different story if there was more available to everyone all of the time. It's just not. Essentially, you have to choose who's worthy to not die.
Yeah, it's a rough spot to be in.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're skeptical that you're going to get an immunization this year, or you think you're getting it at the end of the year?
Um, my wife and I had the same conversation, and I think she's right. She said that my injection will exist in the world. I will not be able to get it. You know what I mean? Like my injection will exist in the world somewhere, right? The one that is for me will exist somewhere. I will not be able to go and get the injection. It's going to be like the draft. It'll have to be, right?
Yeah, it just depends. It's hard for me to forecast the stocks and stuff. I was really hoping to get one by summer if available, but it really just depends on the production. So we have several vaccines available. The first one, which one was that? Not the was that the Moderna? Or was that the other one?
Moderna was the second one that
Oh, it was
was
the
approved by the
Biogen
FDA.
X or
Yeah,
whatever. They said they can only
Biogen, Pfizer
they can only do 1 billion doses through the entire year. So that's what 1/7 of the population, right? So
only. We're kind of skirting around. We haven't touched it either. Third world countries and low income countries are going to be even more impoverished. They're not going to get it.
yeah,
Yeah. I'll get an injection for people in, I don't know, a third world country. Their first line responders get an injection. That doesn't seem right.
right. That's very true. I do agree.
Because, like, the rich countries have all bought in already.
That's true. They bought up lots of the stock. Yeah,
Sudan, or I don't know, as just an example. How many doses does Sudan have?
that's a good question. Do you want to call up the prime minister or the president of Sudan?
Yeah. Here, you can take mine. Immunize one person.
Oh man, but yeah, it's totally true. I think the poor countries are going to be completely fucked because of that.
It's the same problem that we had with smallpox. All right, it's going to take the next 10 years to eradicate it. But the problem, the difference, I think, is we've already have noted, is that the coronavirus evolves, or at least this one does. It seems to evolve a lot faster than what the smallpox had been, right?
That's true. Yeah, the new strains, or at least there's been one new strain that was uncovered in Great Britain a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say like Super Rona in like 2022, but I don't know. When you're in this deep of a cave, it's hard to see the light out.
Yeah, I can totally sympathize. What time frame do you think it'll be all over? I mean, not in a bad way, but when Corona is successfully conquered.
For the world,
Yeah.
I don't know. 2023, maybe. Maybe.
Okay. We'll be coming back to that to see if you're right.
I think we'll be lucky, extraordinarily lucky if it's even under control in the US by the end of 2021.
Will you take the vaccine when it's available to you?
If my number is called, I'm going in.
You're a brave man.
I initially had a lot of doubts about it, but I think learning more about it has sort of quelled a lot of those fears. It's a marvel of the current world that we live in.
Yeah, and I think it's also part of, assuming you're skeptical about vaccines in general, it's really part of a societal, not obligation, but you're doing something for society if you're trying to prevent the spread of this virus more, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of the focus is on, well, this is the fastest we've ever created a vaccine. While that is true, a corona vaccine, not necessarily SARS-CoV-2, but corona in general vaccine has been in the works for years. Moderna, the company so long and short is Moderna essentially created this way of creating antibodies against coronavirus in a new way and has been in research. And part of the reason why Moderna hasn't released any vaccines in the last ever is that is because of this thing that they've been working on. And so part of it too, right, is like Pfizer and Biogen use the same exact technology. They're actually, I don't know if they're leasing it or whatever, but it's part of the same exact, it's basically like the exact same thing, more or less.
Are you talking about the mRNA aspect or?
Yeah, where essentially all they're doing is they're creating a look-alike. It's not like a traditional flu vaccine. It's a look-alike, right? They don't actually give you COVID in a small dose. They give you something that looks like COVID, and so it convinces your body that anything that looks like this is a bad man, and then it attacks that. It attacks that.
Yeah, I heard. So it makes kind of like a facsimile of it, and then your immune system will recognize that bad man's in the future.
Yeah, thanks for translating that for normal humans.
I thought that was great. It's a bad man.
So yeah. So with that said, I think if my number gets pulled out of the fishbowl, I'll be there.
You volunteer as tribute.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And just pray that I don't have a severe allergic reaction, but I think even then it'll be fine.
Yeah, here's hoping.
That's the thing with like vaccines though, right? Is there's always a chance of something happening, but you have to weigh the chance of something happening against like what could actually happen to you
Right, the benefit.
if you got the thing. If I got the shot and I have an allergic reaction and I end up in a hospital for a day and a half or 2 days or a week, it's a hell of a lot better than like potentially losing a hand because I got coronavirus so bad that my blood started clotting and I had my hand chopped off. Those are things that happen. I prefer not to have an enlarged heart, right? I don't know. I would prefer to be in a hospital for a week if I have a allergic reaction than,
Having serious side effects.
but even like potentially pass it on and kill it someone. I don't know. That seems like something that I would want to avoid.
100%, man. Well, I think unless we've got more predictions, I think we're at the end of our episode for 2021. So this is what you have to look forward to as far as the political, economic, and corona aspects of your life.
Just more doom.
We're such a positive podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, people come here for the sunshine and rainbows, to be fair. We're so sorry you had to sit here and listen to this.
As always, thank you, dear listeners, and stay safe, healthy, and all that.
Yeah, please take care of yourself. Take care.